In the shadow of the Dragoon Mountains, where the desert sun scorched the earth like a blacksmith's forge, and the wind carried whispers of forgotten souls, lay the boomtown of Tombstone, Arizona Territory. It was October 26th, 1881, a day when silver dreams turned to leaden nightmares, and the line between lawman and outlaw blurred in a haze of prairie dust and vengeance. This was no mere skirmish born of whiskey-fueled bravado. It was a reckoning, a thunderclap in the fading roar of the Wild West. And at its heart stood four men bound by blood and badge, the Earp brothers and their shadow, Doc Holliday. The story begins not with guns drawn, but with the glint of silver ore that birthed the town. Back in 1877, prospector Ed Schieffelin had wandered these arid hills, his claim laughed off by soldiers at Fort Huachuca. "You'll find nothing but your own tombstone out there," they mocked. Ed struck silver anyway, veins rich as a gambler's hall, and the camp that sprang up around his discovery took the name as a grim jest. By 81, Tombstone pulsed with 7,000 souls, miners hacking at the earth, merchants hawking tinware and tonics, and saloons spilling over with faro dealers and soiled doves. But beneath the bustle lurked a powder keg, rustlers preying on the herds that grazed the San Pedro Valley, stagecoach bandits vanishing into the border badlands, and a sheriff's election splitting the town like a fault line. On one side of that divide rode the Earps, Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan, brothers forged in the fires of Kansas gambling dens and Missouri vendettas. Wyatt Earp, 33 and unyielding as mesquite root, sported a mustache like a dust broom and eyes that had stared down Comanches and claimed jumpers alike. His Colt Peacemaker hung low on his hip, a faithful hound ready to bay. Virgil, the eldest at 40, bore the scars of Gettysburg, a limp from a rebel Minier ball that slowed his stride but not his steel. As Deputy U.S. Marshal, he pinned his star over a heart still tender from the war. Morgan, the baby of the brute at 30, flashed a rogue's grin and a gambler's luck, his laughter as quick as his draw. And trailing them like a consumptive specter was John Henry Doc Holliday, the Georgia dentist turned gun for hire. Pale as parchment, his lungs ravaged by the tuberculosis that would claim him young, Doc nursed a flask of rot gut and a grudge against the world. "I'm your huckleberry," he'd rasp with that genteel drawl, his ivory-handled revolver a extension of his will. Arrayed against them were the cowboys, a ragged confederacy of ranch hands and road agents who treated the law like a coyote treats a fence post. Old Man Clanton, Old K, ruled from his spread near the Mexican line, smuggling cattle, whiskey, and stolen guns across the border for a fistful of pesos. But it was his sons who lit the fuse. Ike, a blustering weasel of a man, all threats and no spine. Billy, the wiry kid brother with fire in his veins and folly in his head. The McClory boys, Frank and Tom, were the muscle. Frank, the hot-tempered elder with a shotgun's itch. Tom, the reluctant tag-along, his coat pistol more for show than slaughter. And skulking at the edges was Billy Claiborne, a slip of a youth nursing grudges bigger than his britches. They weren't just thieves, they were a thorn in the Earp's side, backing the rural Democrats in the county fray while the brothers threw in with the town Republicans. Whispers of rigged votes and ambushed stages filled the smoke of the Oriental Saloon, where Wyatt dealt faro and Doc coughed up blood into his bandana. The spark flew on the eve of the storm, October 25th. Ike Clanton, 3 sheets to the wind at the Alhambra Saloon, locked eyes with Doc Holliday across a scarred oak bar. Words flew like stray bullets, taunts about cowboy scum and tin star tyrants, until Ike lunged, knife flashing. Wyatt Earp, ever the sentinel, cracked Ike's skull with his 6-gun barrel, the thud echoing like Judgment Day. Blood streamed down Ike's face as he staggered into the night, howling curses that woke half the town. "I'll gun you Earps down on sight," he bellowed, his voice a coyote's yelp. By dawn, Virgil had warrants drawn for Ike and Tom McClory on horse-thieving charges. But the cowboys weren't fleeing. They rode into Tombstone bold as brass, hitching their ponies near Fly's boarding house, a stone's throw from the OK Corral livery. Frank McClory concealed a shotgun beneath his duster. Tom fidgeted with his pearl-handled hog leg, and Billy Claiborne paced the boardwalk like a penned wolf. Ike, head bandaged and unarmed, spat venom in every ear. The time has come for a general slaughter. Word raced through the streets like wildfire on the plains. Virgil Earp, baton gripped tight, deputized his brothers on the spot. "We've danced this jig before," Wyatt muttered, holstering his peacemaker. Morgan nodded, his easy smile hardening to resolve. Doc, overhearing the rumble from his room at the Cosmopolitan Hotel, shouldered a sawed-off shotgun and limped to join them. His cough rattled like dry beans in a gourd, but his eyes burned with the devil's own gleam. The four strode down Allen Street, past the Birdcage Theater's garish posters and the crystal chandeliers of the Grand Hotel, the town's gaze heavy on their backs. Tension coiled in the air, thick as the dust devils swirling at their boots. Would the cowboys scatter like spooked mustangs or plant their spurs in the sand? 3 o'clock struck on the town clock, the sun a merciless hammer overhead. The vacant lot behind Fly's photo gallery, a cramped alley no wider than a man's reach, hemmed by corrals and camera tripods, became their coliseum. Virgil stepped forward first, his voice a whip crack. "Throw up your hands, I am the law here." The cowboys froze in tableau. Ike flung his palms skyward, bleeding. "Don't shoot me, Virgil, I ain't healed." But Frank McClory's fingers twitched toward his coat. Billy Clanton's hand darted for his holster. In that suspended breath, the world shattered. It was over in 30 seconds, a blur of muzzle flash and thunder that would echo through ledgers and legends. Wyatt's peacemaker roared first, a .45 slug ripping into Frank McClory's gut, folding the rancher like cheap broadcloth. Doc Holliday, shotgun braced against his thigh, unleashed a storm of buckshot that shredded Tom McClory's chest, the dentist's frail frame steady as granite in the recoil. Virgil's bullet clipped Billy Clanton's wrist, spinning the boy's iron away, then bored into his skull, dropping him limp as a gutted deer. Morgan's shot winged Claiborne, who yelped and bolted into Fremont Street, vanishing like smoke. Tom slumped against the photo studio wall, gurgling blood as a stray round pierced his lung. Frank staggered forward, his shotgun booming wild, a pellet grazing Doc's hip, before Wyatt's second slug punched through his neck, spilling him into the dust beside his brother. Ike, the craven, had fled at the first crack, leaving his allies to the reaper. Gunsmoke curled from hot barrels like the breath of avenging spirits, the acrid tang mingling with the coppery reek of blood. 3 cowboys lay twisted in the sand, their eyes staring sightless at the vulture sky. Virgil clutched his bloodied shoulder, Morgan winced at the furrow in his thigh, and Doc pressed a handkerchief to his grazed side, a wry grin splitting his pallor. Wyatt stood unmoved amid the carnage, reloading with mechanical calm, his badge a dull gleam in the settling haze. The Earps had held the line, but at what cost? Tombstone held its breath as the wounded were carted away and the dead shrouded in canvas. The aftermath was a courtroom farce wrapped in funeral black. Ike Clanton and Billy Claiborne, wailing like banshees before Judge Wells Spicer, branded the Earps assassins in Marshall's guise. "Murder in the first degree," Ike sobbed, his split scalp a badge of his own making. Over 6 weeks, more than 100 witnesses paraded through the hearing, saloon keepers swearing to drawn guns, housewives peeking from lace curtains, even a newsman sketching the lot's grim geometry. Wyatt took the stand, his testimony a rock in the storm. "We acted in self-defense, Your Honor. They forced our hand." Some whispered the cowboys had surrendered. Others swore Frank reached first. Legend claims Wyatt himself etched a map of the melee, X's marking the spots where Billy fell, and Tom gasped his last. On November 30th, the gavel fell. Justifiable homicide. Cheers erupted in the streets, but the victory was Pyrrhic. Vendettas don't die with verdicts. In December, Virgil Earp was ambushed outside the birdcage, buckshot robbing him of an arm and nearly his life. Morgan met his end in a Spicer Avenue billiards hall, a assassin's bullet shattering his spine as he chalked his cue. Wyatt and Doc, blood oaths sworn, lit out on the Earp vendetta ride, a scorched trail of midnight raids that left Curly Bill Brocious and the Clanton remnants fertilizing the desert. Ike himself dodged the noose, slinking into obscurity, while Claiborne met his maker in a Guadalupe dust-up years later. Doc Holliday faded slow, the white plague gnawing deeper. In a Glenwood Springs sanatorium come '87, He lifted a trembling hand to the light, murmuring of that shoot and scrape down in Tombstone before the end. Wyatt outlived them all, peddling his legend to dime novelists and silver screen dreamers until 1929, his eyes ever fixed on that dusty lot. The Battle of Tombstone, 30 Seconds of Fury, didn't just bury 3 men. It tolled the knell for the untamed frontier. In the end, Gunsmoke cleared to reveal not heroes or villains, but men caught in the grind of a vanishing frontier where justice wore a star and glory came wrapped in gunpowder. The OK Corral stands today, a monument to that raw edge, reminding us, in the lawless dance of 6 guns and shadows, who pulls the trigger on destiny. Yet in the quiet hours when the wind scours the huachucas, you can almost hear it still, the rasp of spurs, the click of hammers, the sigh of ghosts wondering if it was glory they chased, or just the devil's own joke. In Tombstone's long shadow where silver turned to myth, one truth endures. On the lawless edge, every draw writes a man's epitaph. What do you reckon? Self-defense or slaughter? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this ride through the dust fired your imagination, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales from the Wild West archives. Next time, we saddle up for the bloody saga of the James Younger Gang. Until then, keep your powder dry, partner.